AITA? For cutting my niece off college fund because of what she said about me. I'm just going to be direct and quick. I am 35. Have two sisters that I'm close with. I also have a niece, Leah. Leah's 16, and after my ex-wife decided to split up and divorce due to infertility problems that lasted for 5 years, I started a college fund for Leah to help her go to her chosen college. That was in 2019. Now I visit my mother's home, where my sister and Leah are living, every week to spend the weekend together. This past weekend I was asleep upstairs while my sister and Leah were in the kitchen. I came downstairs to grab a glass of water and heard my sister talking about my ex-wife expecting a baby with her new husband. This struck a nerve and I kind of froze from shock. I then heard Leah react to the news repeatedly saying, "I told you so, I told you so," then explained. She's always thought that I was the one with a problem for not being able to have a baby with my ex, but that I was too afraid to admit due to fragile masculinity. I could not believe what she said, but what made it worse is her following statement about how my ex was smart to get a divorce before it was too late. I went upstairs and into the room and shut the door and stayed there for hours. Mom and sister saw me about to leave and insisted to know what the problem was. I didn't want to argue, but I told them that I heard what Leah said about me. Leah stopped eating and got quiet. My sister tried to play dumb, but I told her I heard their entire conversation about my ex-wife and her pregnancy news. My sister tried to backpedal, saying Leah is just a kid who doesn't know much about this stuff and was just spouting nonsense. I told them I don't want to talk about it and they refused to let me leave, but I left eventually. I later sent my sister a text telling her about how hurt and devastated I was because of what Leah said, and told her I will no longer be responsible for funding her education. My sister kept trying to call, then texted saying Leah didn't mean what she said and offered to make her apologize, but I didn't feel comfortable being in the same room with someone who blamed me for something that was out of my control and something that literally turned my life upside down. My mother tried to get me to come over so we could talk, saying Leah doesn't deserve me turning my back on her like that. NTA. They let her sit there and have an adult conversation, but want to call her a child when there are consequences of that conversation. You're not responsible for paying for her education, and you're only 35. It's possible that you can find someone else and have your own child. So save that money for your own potential future child. And your sister has a lot of nerve. If the girl doesn't want to take it upon herself to apologize, a forced apology from her is not going to mean a damn thing. I'm childless and my brother has 2 daughters. And I like to send them stuff and contribute to their college funds. But it's only because I choose to. I am not obligated to. They have 2 parents with jobs who can help contribute to their education and other extracurriculars. Being the childless aunt, uncle does not mean we are a bank. NTA, but these are big statements from a 16-year-old, and it is very likely she picked up on all these statements through someone older in the family who has likely been gossiping about you for a while, either your sister, mother, or an aunt, or even the ex-wife. NTA. JFC at the other judgments. This man's life was literally upended by his divorce. You are seemingly forgetting that his own sister didn't defend him or stop the daughter from saying such awful shit. I bet you this was not the first time they've snarked about Op behind his back. It's just the first time he's caught them. It's not fragile masculinity to be hurt by infertility. This is pain no one understands until you happen to experience it. If it were a woman, everyone would be falling head over ass to placate her. But to have family members discuss it so callously behind your back only to then hold their hand out for cash with a grin? Appalling. To Op. I'm so sorry. However, stand by your decision and don't give in. Use that money and treat yourself to therapy. Clean NTA. Generosity stops when you are unkind to the hand that feeds you. What a surprise. Sorry about your loss. Edit. I've read before that if you don't let people be angry at you after you have wronged them, you are just taking more away from them. Leah needs to learn that. So do your family members. Her age excuses her behaviors. Barely. But not the consequences that follow. NTA. Your niece knew exactly what she was saying. Also, her mother didn't correct her or tell her what she was saying was rude in the moment. NTA. Why hasn't her parents got a college fund going for her? You are not responsible to pay for any kid that isn't yours. If I was you, I would take a lovely long vacation on the money that you saved. Too many open questions. How come she said that? Did you believe it was your ex who was infertile and refused to get your sperm count checked? Conversations like that usually don't happen out of the blue. NTA. Your niece's comment is very telling about how she feels about you. Why should you have to fund her education knowing she has little to no respect? She is not entitled to it. It was a kindness on your part. Even though she is young. That level of disrespect is pretty deep. Let her take out loans. Or let her parents pay. I would normally err on the side of patience with a 16-year because they're idiots, but the "I told you so" stuff does make it sound very like she's been beating this horse for a while. Which is weird and frankly suggests it's really coming from your mom and/or sister. Because most under 16s don't hyper-focus on their uncle's sperm count. If I were you, I'd tell your mom and sister you want to understand why she said that. You should also consider reinstating the fund in due course given a sufficient apology from both Leah and your sister, who's obviously been gossiping about this for ages. I told you so equals we have often discussed this before. NTA. Your mother and your sister are assholes for not speaking up and telling Leah that talking about her uncle that way is unacceptable. Info. Did you not get tested after 5 years to see if it was sperm related? I mean, was your ex going through a bombardment of tests and infertility treatments that could have been avoided had you been tested? It sounds like a lot of thoughts at you at the same time. New info about pregnant ex. The understanding that it may have indeed been some difficulties on your end. The people are attributing blame for the situation to you. You responded emotionally. It sounds like you and your ex did not get tested to see the cause of the infertility issues. If the reason for the non-testing was your reluctance, and your family was aware of this, then that is why it would be a light bulb moment for them too. It seems you lashed out in hurt, and that your niece voiced a fear that you've been holding on to for all these years. Infertility is indeed a huge thing to have to deal with, and we hope everyone treats us kindly when they talk about it. But it was a private conversation between them. You weren't aware your ex was pregnant before this. They may have well presented this info to you in a more responsible manner once they processed the news themselves. Were you hurt and entitled to cut her off? Yes. Was your hurt solely and mainly caused by your niece? No. And that is what you have to deal with. No one is blaming you for the infertility. Saying she was smart to get out means that your ex ended things when she wasn't getting what she wanted out of the relationship. I suspect this still has a lot to do with you refusing to get tested, which is what makes the fragile masculinity line make sense. If you were tested, this I will withdraw this whole thing and say that you're not But if you used to blame your ex more than you did yourself, then you know that you're projecting your anger to yourself onto your niece. I think you should consider therapy, love. NTA, by the way. How would Leah, who is now only 16, always suspect you had some issue? Which would have involved her knowing about your situation when she was like 11 or so. She is being fed this weird-ass pontificating by your own sister. Which is why they did not dismiss it in the first place. Info. Did you get tested during the 5 years of infertility? We are missing so much info. And I think you wrote this in your light. What your niece said was shitty. But it's obvious the adults have been talking to her about it. Not her fault. That's the adults' fault. Info about your divorce is entirely needed to determine if you're the asshole. You said you and your ex struggled for years to have a child. And failed. And now she's pregnant. Did you get tested to see if it was on your end? Or did you just assume it was her fault? If you forced her to try multiple fertility treatments when you were the issue, that's a problem. If you weren't willing to look at yourself and only blame your ex, that's a problem, which we already know happened, based on your reaction to hearing it was your fault. It sounds like your family thinks you were a dick to your ex about all of this. And that's why she was lucky to leave when she did. I think you treated your ex like shit about this based on how you reacted to the idea that it could be your fault. I think you need to do some reflection. Because you and your actions are definitely the root of this issue. You're uncomfortable and angry because you heard something that shattered the image that you created. I cannot make a judgment without this information. If you were a dick to your ex, and are now being a dick to your family because they think you were a dick to your ex, you're an asshole. If these are completely baseless claims, then not the asshole. We also don't even know if Leah knows about the money. If you're pulling a rug from under her that she didn't even know she was standing on, that's a dick move. And your conversation with your sister would feel manipulative. Of course your money is yours to do with as you please. But don't put your niece's future in question because you have a bruised ego after eavesdropping on a convo you weren't supposed to hear. You should have left the convo the second you heard your ex was pregnant. You stayed and listened, and got burned because of it. TLDR. I think Op left out pertinent details on purpose to sway opinion based on his reaction to hearing infertility may have been his fault. Edit. That fact that Op got angry at hearing his family even mention his ex, her new family, and new baby is a giant red flag. I'll go with NTA. Since she's a kid who knows nothing, your sister could have correct her daughter's statement in that mom and unless you're leaving something out. This means that your sister and probably your mom think the same, and this is a kind of conversation that they had before you finding out. Also, people are saying that because of her age you can make her accountable for her comments, but she is mature enough to bring the concept of toxic masculinity to end. If your niece for 1 second believed that she hurt you or said something wrong, she would have apologized after you told them what you heard. But your sister is offering to make her apologize because you no longer are willing to pay for her school. Holy shish. That was completely heartless and tone deaf, even if said in confidence. NTA. You had no obligations to her to begin with, and 16 is old enough to know better. Leah is the awe here. You have been so good to your family, and these comments are way below the belt. Leah needs to issue an apology and stop hiding behind her mom. But I don't blame you for needing space. I'm so sorry, Op, for everything. I know the news of the pregnancy coupled with these harsh comments hurt more than I can ever fathom. NTA. She's obviously been hearing stuff from somewhere and feels comfortable enough talking about it with her grandma and mom, so it's not the first time it's been brought up. Disappointed. NTA. She's old enough to know what she said was hurtful and insensitive.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.